All right, I'll say, how are you all sitting your time as you create time to exist? Now, we will begin before the idea of sharing, discussion, and conviction, as we have discussed previously of your time, this time of your time, the idea, the new understanding of yourselves as beings that are now willing to put into action all that you have previously imagined, previously thinking that your imagination was not real to you. In this way, as we have been discussing this time of your time, you have created this idea and all the symbology within this idea you call your new year for the purpose of recognizing that you are a new you, a new personality, a new being, a new consciousness, a new idea of yourself. And within this idea, you can also understand that not only as an individual, but as a society, you are transforming, changing the idea of yourselves, and willing to act upon those ideas, to have conviction, to know that you can express who and what you feel yourselves to be this time of your time. Now, recognize that the more you are willing to allow yourselves this freedom of action, the less you will create for yourselves the opportunities to sit around and complain about the way things are that you do not like. For you will now begin to see the idea of the connection of everything in your society as it relates to you. And as you relate to it, and you will begin to understand that you, each individual within your society, makes a difference within that society. Recognize you have chosen your purpose in being in this society at this time upon your planet and your civilization. Recognize that if you were not going to make a difference, you would not be here. Are you all following along? Yes. Each individual will make a difference in this society as a total, as a whole. And in this way, allows the society to recognize within each individual within it the ability of the society to relate to each individual specifically, and the ability of each individual to recognize within him or herself the totality of the society, thus forming the first bridge and link and connection from the individual self, from the personality to the mass consciousness, allowing you to know that every move that you undertake, every move that you support, every move that you create will always, because you are connected to everything else, act as a lever for everything else, subtly shifting ideas in one direction or another. And in this way, you will know that you are connected in various ways through the mental fields that you create upon your planet, through the physiological fields that you create through the manipulation of the energy fields of the planet itself, all the ideas that you call your civilization, both physiologically and mentally and emotionally and consciously and spiritually, all are diversifications out of the same primal homogeneous energy field, the primal consciousness. All are diversifications out of that, and all are, as you have said many times, the idea of the different shells, the different layers, so to speak, as you say, upon your idea, you call the onion upon your planet. Many different layers have been created by you out of the homogeneous oneness of the energy field that is the underlying primal foundation of all creation that you call physical. As you diversify these layers, recognize that because you are creating the diversification, you are still connected to every single layer. You are connected and pass through all layers from without and from within. All layers are within you, and every move that you make within yourself is a move made in the outer physical awareness, because the outer physical reality is only a reflection of every idea that you are exploring within the self. To travel, to move through the physical reality, no matter what motive your force, no matter whether you are walking, whether you are running, whether you are riding in one of your automobiles, or whether you are flying in one of your aeroplanes, whether you are in spacecraft, any idea of motion through space is the idea of movement within, exemplified and reflected back to you as a symbol. Now recognize, therefore, the idea that in this way, you, each and every one of you, have an effect upon the society as a whole with every small, subtle movement that you make. For every movement in this way is not insignificant to any other movement. All movements are equal and go into the totality of the creation of your society as you perceive it. Now that you are beginning to recognize that there is no longer any separation between yourself as an individual and the society, you can begin to recognize that as you move, the society moves as a whole. You are immersed in the same fluid. Every other being, every other individual Every other self-created perspective within that fluid will always feel the eddies and the currents as you make your move around in the fluid. They will always be able to sense the directions of your flow, the directions of your movement, the strength that you give, the energy that you impart to the fluid in this way, and all, whether you know it or not consciously, are sensitive to this activity, sensitive to your willingness to be exactly who and what you are, what you chose to be in this life. Are you following along?
Yes.
Now, therefore, this evening of your time, we will discuss later on some ideas specifically relating to suggestions for what may exist within each and every one of you pertaining to your willingness to communicate these ideas that you wish to be, your ability to be willing to act upon these ideas in specific ways. Now recognize two things. One, it will not make any difference to us whether you do so or not. You will be doing this for yourselves, not for us. And in this way, therefore, number two, recognize we are not charging you with a task. Recognize we are simply putting forth suggestions as we have perceived from you that many individuals are willing to do these ideas, but simply are still separating the answer from themselves, creating the question, how do I do this? Therefore, we will offer suggestions. By no means what we say will be definitive and will be the only way. No. Each and every one of you with your own imagination may alter what we suggest, and in this way you know that the way your imagination chooses to alter what anyone suggests represents the vibration and the methodology and the means that is pertinent and, quote-unquote, true for you. You all follow along?
Yes.
We will discuss these ideas after your break. We will also be a little bit at that time, before we get into that idea, discussing some of what many of you have asked many times about how we perceive you in this way. And in this way, at the beginning of what you call the second portion of this evening's discussion, there will also be the creation that was instituted by Erika and the physical channel, which will be of some assistance in exemplifying to you some of how we perceive your society from time to time, and why many times you will find that we can with you co-create the idea of difficulty in communication with our relative terms as we understand existence, and your relative terms as you have chosen to create your understanding of existence. Therefore, within this entire idea, we will now begin the idea of sharing in this way, recognizing that whether or not you choose to ask a question or make a statement of yourself, all will be considered equal sharing, and all will be an unconditionally loving gift, so that every being that hears every other being have the willingness to have the conviction to share vocally with every other being that you have attracted to you this night of your time and with us. You will then learn that everything that is said, everything that you can hear, everything that you attract yourself to hear has something to do with a part of you. Otherwise, you would not be involved in the interaction that you are perceiving. Remember that everything you perceive, you only perceive because you contain it. That which you do not contain, the idea of which you are not, you do not encounter. Do you follow me?
Yes.
Sharing